Toscani siete così poi adesosi con una provincia e l'altra.
Io sto una settimana lì, mi vado 2 mesi.
Ma roba del medievale.
Luglio, agosto, dai nonni.
Roba medievale.
Loro mi dicevano dai dimmelo, mortacci.
Non esiste secondo me.
Che li offendevo.
Lo so, cioè, non c'è una provincia che si ama, siete peggio della Jugoslavia, cazzo.
Una volta mi nonno
Che si odiano uno con l'altro.
Mi nonna.
Guarda che è perfetto, la Toscana è come la Jugoslavia, non si odiano uno con l'altro, cazzo. Si odiano uno con l'altro. Perché voletevi bene, ammazzate. Pisano.
Castiglioncello.
È vero, c'è un sceto. Cascia. Bastardone. Un minuto. Occhio ragazzi, occhio che qui sta gara ci rompe le palle ste cose. Toro opposto. No, ma qui la facciamo in scioltezza.
Dai, 3 ore e poi
Riccardo, modalità standard,
porca miseria.
tranquilli. L'unica rottura di scala è che questi si fermano.
Ti chiedo un'ora.
Totalmente C.
Total sì.
Pronti, noi pronti. Occhio pit, preparatevi.
Grafica aperta.
Pit 1.
2, 1, in onda.
Oh, good afternoon, everybody, and a very warm welcome to the Red Bull Ring for the first of 3 races this weekend for the Radical European Masters. This excellent championship's already been to Jerez, Dijon, Prenois, Silverstone, amongst others, and we're now here in Austria. A triple header this weekend around the Red Bull Ring. So it's a warm welcome from myself, Ben Evans. Alongside me from Radical Cars is Will Brown, and looking at pole sitting combination, John Harrison and Victor Carrere, and it's John Harrison who starts. He shares the front row with James Swift.
Yeah, Victor Carrere set a blinding pace in qualifying earlier on this morning with a 1:31.378. So fantastic lap around at what is undoubtedly one of the sort of real highlights of the Radical European Masters season.
Third on the grid then, Terence Woodward and Ross Kaiser, the pair of them absolutely dominating the weekend that we had at Silverstone about a month ago, and they have really been excellent form this year after a really disappointing 2014. They bounced back in the best way possible. Fourth on the grid and the first of the Spiders is James Abbott. James, who moments ago was racing in the International GT Open, at least knows the track conditions for this afternoon. And here is my bet for the win, Will, because of the way the handicaps that work through, Manhal has got a great chance.
Manhal's undoubtedly got to be a hot favourite, of course, a solo driver, so he's got benefit in the pit stops. He'll know what the track conditions are like after the first half of the race, and yes, as you say, with the minimum success seconds that he's carrying at the moment, he's going to be in the hot seat. So that's Jaap Bartels there. He'll be sharing with a real stalwart of Radical Racing, Stuart Mosley, and then solo driver Alan Costa.
Yeah, Costa was looking brilliant at Silverstone as well, and he has continued that form across. And then Chris Hoy next up on the grid. Thumbs up from Chris, who again has literally just hopped out of a Radical RXC for the International GT Open. Probably didn't even have time to take his helmet off.
Yeah, as we now look across to Jean Gander, another one of the new for 2015 RXC Spiders there that he's piloting, and a fantastic and very good this weekend, and bolstered by an additional couple of SR3s as well.
Then we move on to Andrew Ferguson, who lines up in 8th place, and Andrew, I think, was in the wars a little bit yesterday in free practice, judging by some of the bodywork in the awning this morning.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of excursions across the gravel as the guys got to grip with this circuit. As we see our lead Supersports class leader there, so that'll be Andy Cummings starting from the SR3 pole with Bradley Ellisy sharing that car.
Yeah, and Bradley, I don't think even got to race at Silverstone because Andy encountered problems early on. Next up on the grid is Ricardo Donut, who we saw a couple of times last year in the Radical and also has appeared at Dijon already this season. And then Now this could be interesting, the Supersport class, Will. Marco Ciancetti racing single-handedly this weekend, very quick Italian driver.
Normally shares that SR3 RS with Marcel Marin. No, Marco's driving solo this weekend. Alongside lining up is Shaheen Nouri as well.
Yeah, so Shaheen, who relatively inexperienced in terms of miles under his belt, but a quick racer. And then we have got Jani Höpje, who is the new Finnish SR3 racer for this weekend. Maybe regretting the black car and black helmet with 30 degrees plus temperature outside.
It's been absolutely sweltering since the trucks arrived here on Wednesday afternoon, and very, very different conditions as we just see Roger Romney there lining up on the final row. But, very, very different conditions from when the Radical European Masters last visited here 3 years ago, when it absolutely teamed it down with rain. In fact, a couple of the races were delayed because of the torrential rain. But no, really, really very, very high temperatures here, high track temperatures. It's going to be a real endurance test for the drivers in these cars.
So in terms of the championship then, well, leading the way in the Masters class, it's Terence Woodward and Ross Kaiser, and they are on 244 points, ahead of Manhal Als, who's in second place, and almost 50 points adrift, but only a handful of points back from Manhal, John Harrison and Victor Correa. So there's everything to race for with 3 races to come this weekend. And I think it's interesting as well, Will, that we've not seen, certainly in the televised races this year, Manhal right up for the podium, but he's been racking up those finishes and is right there in the standings.
His consistency this year has been exceptional, and as you say, he's just managed to sort of use his status as a very experienced solo driver to great advantage. But with the way it swung this weekend, with he's only carrying a fairly sort of light 45-second success. You know, he's got no success second, so it's a short 45-second stop for him. You know, likewise Terence Woodward and Ross Kaiser, for example, they're carrying 85 seconds, so he's got a real advantage when those pit stops start.
So the car's about to go off on their formation lap. It is an hour's race that we've got to look forward to. There is the mandatory pit stop that must come at some point in the race. Now, one of the big talking points is going to be, as it was in Jerez at the start of the season, we know that in the Masters class, the Spiders won't need to refuel. It is touch and go for the SR8s.
The Spiders have a much bigger 100-litre fuel tank, whereas the SR8 RXs are looking around 70 litres. So it really is going to be do or die as to whether or not they can sort of do the full race on. Certainly it's marginal. No, absolutely. I mean, by the calculations that the teams have made, I think there will be maybe one lap's worth of fuel left in the tank at the end of the race, if they drive sensibly.
That's if. So there are 3 classes to watch for as well. There's the Masters class, which is for the SR8s. There's the Supersport class, which is for the SR3s and in their various guises, and then there is also for the drivers in the second flush of youth the Fangio class as well, that we will keep you appraised of, and that is currently being led by Manhal Alos from Alain Costa.
Yeah, the Fangio Trophy, which as you mentioned, is for the slightly more senior drivers in the championship, and yeah, it's Manhal's again has done a fantastic job this year and has consistently finished on the top step of that, so he's got a good lead at the moment, some 49 points I believe.
And then just for completeness, the Supersport Championship, well, that's led by Maritiotto and Ciancetti, but they are only about 5 points ahead of Shaheen Nouri, Andy Cummins and Bradley Ellis, who were right to the fore of that. Their disastrous weekend at Silverstone has slipped them down to 4th, but they're still there or thereabouts in terms of contention.
That's right, and with the second in the championship, Brian Caldwell, not here this weekend, it's really going to shake the order up in that championship, I think.
So the cars on their formation lap. It will, of course, be a rolling start, as ever, in the Radical European Masters. Now, there are 2 key corners that have been talking points all weekend. Firstly, into Turn 1, we have seen more than one car getting into an awful lot of bother there, just because the braking point is really hard to gauge. And then also, heading through the final turn, Turn 9, we've seen a lot of drivers understeering out wide, particularly during the free practice sessions yesterday. So that is going to be somewhere to watch. The field currently heading through Turn 7 of this Red Bull Ring circuit, which was previously known as the A1 Ring. And the A1 Ring itself was massively reprofiled from the original Österreich Ring circuit, although the Red Bull Ring retains a a significant flavour of the original layout and does use substantial sections as well of the original circuit, including this. This is the iconic shot under the bridge, over the crest. This is what racing in Austria is all about to a generation of motorsport fans as the pace car pulls aside. It's the orange car of John Harrison, the black and blue Domino's pizza car of James Swift, who share the front row. We're about to go racing for the first time this weekend in the Radical European Masters as we wait for the lights to change. An hour of action ahead of us as away we go. And who's got the jump as they power under the bridge? It's not such a good start from John Harrison. It's a very good start from Terence Woodward and also Manhal Alos as they surge into turn one. It's James Swift who takes the advantage, or does he, as they all run very, very wide. Somehow they've got through, but the order is massively jumbled. It's Swift who leads, Harrison in second, then Woodward in third, Chris Hoy up to fourth from James Abbott, Manhal Alos and the rest of them.
Yeah, Manhalos really lost out in that move there. Obviously, he was able to follow Terence through on the start of the rolling start, but unfortunately just caught out in the melee. As we also see Alos again running out wide and regains the track. So
Manhalos dropping down to about 6th or 7th place as now Terence Woodward looks to the inside of John Harrison on the brakes into turn 3. Harrison didn't want to give it to him, but that was nicely done by Terence Woodward. He just ran out wide, squeezed away the chance of Harrison to get the switch back as the field head through turn 4. Now the downhill left-hander at 5, and Alos has slipped to about 7th place. He's just behind Jaap Bartels, has a big moment as he just snaps on the brakes into turn 5. Then they head round another of the left-handers at 6 before this quick kink at turn 7, and then downhill to conclude the first lap.
Yeah, we see Bartels has quickly recovered, and he's now right on the tail of Alain Costa and looking to find a way past him in this opening lap.
So our race leader, James Swift, is going to try and live up to his name and burst free in these early stages. And this has been an excellent first lap from Swift. Across the line he comes, 1.3 seconds quicker than Terence Woodward. In third place, we've got John Harrison. Fourth is James Abbott. Fifth, Chris Hoy. Sixth, Jaap Bartels. Seventh, Alain Costa. Oh, that's a huge slide from Chris Hoy. Eighth is Manhal Alos. And our leading Supersport car is Ricardo Dona.
Yes, yeah, you do get a sense, as you say, that first corner really is a challenging braking point because the circuit almost rears up towards you as you come into the braking zone. It's very, very difficult. So a lot of people locking up in the qualifying yesterday as Bartels, brief bit of contact there, but I think, yep, and looks like there's some rubbing bodywork damage there for Costa as a result.
And that feels the most disproportionate if that forces a pit stop from Alain Costa. It was the tiniest piece of contact, but you can see the rear bodywork is all askew. And I think out of embarrassment, Jaap Bartels hasn't gone past him just yet. He now tries into turn 3, and Alain Costa just worry whether or not that's rubbing enough to potentially give him a puncture.
I'm just wondering if he's already feeling the effect of that, and he's certainly backed off, hasn't he?
Well, like Timothy Dalton in the Austria set James Bond film The Living Daylights, he's creating a smokescreen for his rivals, but unfortunately for Costa, I fear that is going to be a trip pitwards, because the way the bodywork's damaged, it's not likely to detach itself, but it is rubbing against the wheel. It's really the worst outcome.
Yeah, as you see already, he's heading towards the pit lane, and he can get there. So luckily, it shouldn't cost him too much time, and he'll be back on his way with some judicial use of duct tape, I would think.
So into the pit lane for Alain Costa at the end of lap 2. Up front, though, the driver who really lost out from all that was, in fact, Chris Hoy. He's been shuffled down into 7th place. So it is Swift from Woodward. Then Harrison's got James out all over his tail. Yeah, Bartels is in 5th. Manhal Alos in 6th. Hoy in 7th. Andrew Ferguson in 8th. Ricardo Dona in 9th from Marco Cencetti. And then it's Andy Cummings who currently completes the Supersport podium.
Swift doing an absolutely fantastic job there. We just see the Radical France mechanics doing some running repairs there. But no, Swift did a fantastic job in qualifying yesterday, and he's undoubtedly at the head of the field. If he can carry off this out and continue to build a lead, then hopefully he can preserve that 10-second success ballast that he's got in the pit stops and returning the lead after the pit stops.
So Swift trying to build the buffer. The field a little bit spread, but now here is the battle amongst the Supersport front runners. Ricardo Dona has got tucked up behind him Marco Cencetti. Headlights ablaze from Cencetti. And he was 1.8 seconds back from Donar at the start of the lap. It would appear as if he's a little bit closer. He's got Jean Gandar behind him, and Gandar has faded a little bit after a difficult start. So out of turn 5 for Chen Shetty. Here is our race leader, meanwhile, James Swift. And the tyre squealing a little bit. It felt as if he was understeering into turn 9, but it didn't really translate into any lost time.
No, that's right. Just see again, Bartels a little moment there, but quick to regain it. But again, it's it looks like now that's James Abbott just lining up a move on John Harrison. Thinks the better of it, saves it for the next corner.
Well, I think what we've been seeing with the drivers all weekend is they know that it's far better to go for the move out of turn 1 with the long run uphill rather than go for a move at turn 1 and then have to frantically defend or be repassed up towards turn 2. They arrive there now, and Abbott, you get the sense if he can get past John Harrison, he's going to streak away from him, but he just can't quite find the opening at the moment. He's trying into every single corner, but Harrison's just doing enough in the right places.
Yeah, and all the while, Swift has again set the fastest lap of the race, so he's continued to pull out a lead. It's now 2.561 seconds. Again, just another look to the inside there at turn 3.
They head down out of turn 3 through turn 4 and then onto the left-hander at 5. Abbott flicks it through the left-hander, introduced to the bright orange car of John Harrison. Of course, Harrison's got Victor Correa, the ex-Euro Formula Open racer, poised to take over through the mid-race pit stops. That's a car that's going to figure very strongly throughout the course of the race. Likewise for James Abbott, because he's going the whole distance single-handedly. And what that means for James Swift in the lead is, Will, that he needs to build that buffer because he knows he's got Woodward to hand over to Ross Kaiser, Harrison to hand over to Victor Correa.
Yeah, as you say, with Terence and Ross have got 85 seconds, so you know it's really going to mix up the order. And what we've seen so much through the year, of course, is that with the AMs in the cars first and then the professional drivers out second, is that you get a lot of drivers out of order trying to mix and find their way back through traffic, and it creates a really interesting dynamic in the European Masters.
Certainly does. Yeah, 85 seconds in the pits. Hope they've bought some reading material, because that is going to feel like an absolute eternity if you compare that to Manhalals, who's got 45 seconds. So 40 seconds of additional time in the pits is going to take quite some overcoming as we are on lap 5 of the race. The lap times, by the way, are in the low 1 minute 32, well, high 1 minute 32s, low 1 minute 33s, and Alos is currently on for potentially the fastest lap of the race. He has had an absolutely stellar first sector in 6th place as he closes up towards Jaap Bartels. James Swift set the fast lap of the race last time through. His lead then over Terence Woodward is out to 3.4 seconds. Woodward just beginning to slip into the clutches, maybe, of John Harrison as Harrison gets the hurry up from James Abbott.
Yeah, that's right, and you can see that the duo, they're both catching Terence Woodward at the same time. So in the next couple of laps, this is really going to come together and create an exciting situation as we approach the pit stops. But there's still 12 minutes to go before that takes place.
As Abbott, he's just going to be careful here not to let frustration get the better of him, because you can just see from the body language of that RXC Spider, he's desperate to get past.
Yeah, and it's not the widest of Grand Prix circuits either here at Red Bull Ring, and the temptation is, as you say, is to run wide off onto the concrete runoff that's in so many areas of the circuit. But you're really compromised in terms of get up and go then thereafter, because it's all in the places where it's really slow speed corners. That first and second, it really takes it out of you if you're not on the optimum line.
And it is a very steep climb up as well from turn 1 to turn 2. But Harrison slow now out of turn 2. This is the opening James Abbott was looking for. John Harrison thought about closing the door, realised he couldn't do it as James Abbott had drawn alongside him, the pair of them in the late afternoon sunshine here at the Red Bull Ring. And Abbott squeezes Harrison out. He's not taking any chances of a fight back from John Harrison. Finally, James Abbott gets through. And that's a real sign of maturity as a driver for me in James Abbott, that he just waited, saw that slight error from Harrison and then went for it.
Yeah, he was able to bide his time there and get a fantastic drive out of turn 2. And it looked for a second like Harrison was going to get the measure of him into turn 3 and maybe retake the place. But no, absolutely, he just gave himself enough space to make the pass stick, and fantastic move.
So now the next target for James Abbott is Terence Woodward in 2nd place. So this could be very interesting. If Abbott can clear Woodward as well, and he's already up onto terms with Terence as they flash through over the line.
Yeah, and indeed he's just set the fastest lap of the race in that last lap, so Abbott's on a charge.
Almost a little bit too much of a
slide
charge.
There, real over-exergence, and did extremely well to catch that counter slide and keep it on the track. But of course what that's meant now is that Harrison's got the drive, and possibly he'll be looking, is he going to dive out? Looks to the outside in, yes, he's able to retake the place.
Or is he?
James going to look again? Oh, they touch.
Robust defence there from James Abbott, but it was exactly the point you were making a lap ago, Will, which is that any mistake coming through turn one is punished in triplicate because of that long run up the hill.
Yes, yeah, with it being uphill as well, it's not dissimilar to the situation coming out of Eau Rouge and all the way up to Lake Coombs at Spa. It's that same thing, because you've got a long uphill drive. It really saps the power out of the engine. If you're not absolutely on cam and using the maximum horsepower of your engine, it's just a killer.
So now we have got this battle for 5th and 6th place between Jaap Bartels and Manhal Alos. And Alos has spent a couple of laps reeling in Jaap. Now he is right onto his tail. And crucially as well for the race could unfold, Alos is within 10 seconds of the race leader, James Swift. And James's pit stop is going to be at least 10 seconds longer than that of Manhal Alos. So for James Swift, he's doing what he needs to do, breaking away, and for Alos, he needs to try and dart past. Here we see it again, and Abbott absolutely determined to defend into the corner.
You do sense there that he was possibly forced to brake a little later than he'd like. The car just slightly jinked to the left there, but no, they both did very well to keep it on the track there.
Unfortunately, because it was just that slight side-to-side contact, shouldn't be anything particularly in the way of damage done to either car. But now you can see Jaap Bartels being propelled along by the pace of Manhal Alos, means that John Harrison is being caught just a little bit. Here is the race leader, James Swift. Terence Woodward then in second place, 4.1 seconds back. Now that last lap with Abbott during that defence was a 1 minute 34.5, so he has dropped back somewhat from Terence. I'll just be interested to see the pace from James Abbott this time around, in case there was just maybe a little bit of misalignment of the suspension or something that's just going to have unsettled the handling of the Spider. Nothing terminal for the car, but just a frustration for the driver that could lead to a drop in the lap time. That's clearly not the case, because Abbott was 0.6 quicker than Terence Woodward through the middle sector.
Yeah, that's right, and of course it has given Terence a little bit of breathing space. I'm sure he was looking in his mirrors and will have been told by the crew over the radio that was the case. So yeah, he's been given a reprieve for another couple of laps.
So 47.5 minutes remain. So we are 7.5 minutes away from the pit window opening. What we've seen in the races so far this year in the Radical European Masters is that we see a flurry of pit stops at the start of the pit window and a flurry of pit stops at the end of the pit window.
Yeah, that's right. With a lot of the solo drivers have tended to stay out late and really take advantage of a clear air as much as possible during the pit stop window. We're just seeing a warning coming up now, cars 5, 29 and 61. So that's Manhal Alos and
Jaap Bartels.
Jaap Bartels, that's right. And Marco Ciancetti also possibly getting a warning for track limits. So they've really got to be careful now.
Yeah, I think a 5 on Manhal getting a track limits warning flag on a track like the Red Bull Ring, where you've got a lot of expansive runoff, a lot of corners that invite you to run wide, would have been a pretty safe bet. But Manhal is doing a really solid job here and could well be in contention for a podium, depending on how the pit stops cycle themselves through. I think what Manhal would really like as well is Jaap Bartels ducking in quite early to hand over to Stuart Mosley. That would release him into some clear air and then potentially to chase down Harrison.
Yeah, he needs to get out from behind, and you can see just in the background there how close he is top behind Jaap Bartels. If he can get into some fresh air and get some track space, then he can pick up the pace again and try and keep that deficit that he has to Swift to a minimum.
So we are to the conclusion of lap 9. James Swift still leads. This is the battle for second place between Terence Woodward and James Abbott. And they are separated by just under half a second. This is the very tricky braking zone into turn 1. because it invites you to brake a little bit later than you really can, and it's all about the focus then from the exit of turn 1, this long drag uphill. Makes me feel tired just looking at the TV pictures, let alone trying to actually walk up there, as they then flick through turn 2. And it's a really tricky corner as well, turn 2, because the apex of the turn, you're still climbing out of the corner before it eventually levels out.
Yeah, there is in effect sort of a second apex. There's a crest as you really hit the centre of the end, the centre of the corner, and then shortly after that, then there's another crest. So yeah, it's very difficult to judge a braking point, and you can't really see the exit of the corner from either the entry or the midpoint.
So in terms of the Super Sport class, to bring you up to speed on that, it's Marco Cincetti from Ricardo Dona and Andy Cummings. And then our Fangio runners, that's Jaap Bartels from Manhal Alos, and then Andrew Ferguson. Well, they all look a lot younger than that. I'm sure they lied on their passport to get the extra trophy. As Harrison in 4th place, staying within 10 seconds of the race leader James Swift. He is 8.5 seconds back from Swift. But crucially, as Jaap Bartels defends from Manhal Alos, that's beginning to build a little bit of a buffer in the region of about 3 seconds or thereabouts. So 10 laps complete, and that hasn't been such a good lap for James Abbott. He slips back from Terence Woodward as Woodward just elevates his pace a little bit to 1 minute 32.4.
Yeah, you do sense that on that the last time round he was just a little bit further away on this run up here into turn 2, and yet again it looks like Woodward's got a really strong drive out of that first corner and on the run up, and as we just see Swift passing by there in the front of the shot. So yeah, this leading 4 cars all still very close and a lot to play for in the remaining 2/3 of the race.
Now, with an eye towards fuel economy, is 132.4 too hot a pace to be running at to be comfortable? There's going to be some gas in the tank in the last couple of laps.
I think it will be, yes. Yeah, when we look at the qualifying times earlier on, they were running in the low 31s. You know, a couple of drivers even dipping into the 130s. So I think what you might find is in the latter stages of the race that those lap times maybe just drop off slightly, but you know, and likewise with the tyres as well. It's an incredibly hot day out there. The track is somewhere in the region of 40-45 degrees, so tyre degradation could be a bit of an issue here as well.
Yeah, do not be deceived by seeing the sun beginning to dip and thinking that the track has cooled off. Not a bit of it. It has been an absolutely scorching day. As another good lap here from Terence Woodward. He is going to be at least half a second faster than James Abbott as they come over the line now, and Abbott has responded actually very well through the final sector, but still Woodward quicker, so the gap between the pair of them goes out to exactly 1.1 seconds, and they remain 5.5 seconds adrift of the race leader James Swift. They're 2.7 seconds clear of John Harrison. And Manhal Alos has found his way past Jaap Bartels, so there was a change for 5th. Alos is past Bartels, and now we're going to see just what Manhal can do, because he's got something like 4 seconds to chase down to Harrison, so that is going to be worth watching to see how quickly he can close that gap.
Yeah, and he is, at the moment, he's lapping some sort of half a second a lap faster than Harrison, so it's not going to take him too long to catch up. Really, again, it's going to be a question of when Harrison decides to hand over to Correa as to whether or not he's going to be able to catch him in time and maybe possibly pass him before the pit stops.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a huge amount, really, between Victor Correa and John Harrison. Harrison has benefited a lot from, I think, having Correa in the car in terms of seeing the Brazilian's telemetry and learning from Correa's driving technique. So in terms of the overall race, there's no, to win it, it doesn't necessarily mean that Harrison has to jump into the pits the second the pit window opens, as Jaap Bartels is coming back at Manhal Alos. So Alos not exactly sprinting away from Bartels, who I think is finding it's a little bit easier to follow than maybe it is to lead.
As we just cut back again to Swift, and he's again just continuing to eke out the advantage at the front there now, 5.8 seconds in the lead over Woodward.
We're approaching 1/3 race distance. Oh, and Jaap Bartels went for a move on Manhal Alos, and it looked for a moment as if they were about to make contact. I suspect it was the camera angle foreshortening somewhat, but Alos runs wide at turn 1 and runs alongside Jaap Bartels as the pair of them climb uphill towards turn 2. Alos able to maintain that slight advantage over Bartels. Yappel over the tail of Manhal.
Yeah, and you say just got a fantastic drive there, a little bit of a gap eked out, but no, that was could have been a very, very exciting move into the second corner there, and I think I do sense there that maybe Yap just thought the better of it and realised that there was possibly going to be some close combat there. If you see the really, just the briefest bit of contact that we was off shot. There, and another one.
It was the briefest bit of contact. They decided they enjoyed it so much they did it twice more.
But and a big slide there by Yap as well. So that may have just given Alice enough of a sort of a reprieve there to get on his way and lose the chasing Bartels. No, he's coming back again. Really, you can see it's cat and mouse all the way around this lap.
Well, that was quite something, wasn't it? Because the car's doing well over 200 kilometres an hour along the start and finish straight here at the Red Bull Ring. We are just over a third of the way through the first of 3 races this weekend in the Radical European Masters. James Swift is our race leader from Terence Woodward and James Abbott. In 4th, it's John Harrison. We're watching the battle between Manhal in 5th, Jaap Bartels in 6th, Chris Hoy is in 7th, Andrew Ferguson is in 8th, Jean Gandar 9th, Ricardo Dona is in 10th place, and he leads the Supersport class from Andy Cummings and Yanni Hupje. And into the pits at some point we have had Roger Bromley and Marco Cencetti, but the pit lane has only now just opened for the driver change, so both of those I think were out of sequence and unplanned pit stops.
Yeah, I was surprised we didn't see Marco Cencetti dropping back. But no, now we're into the main pit stop window, of course, and this is where the drivers take their mandatory pit stops. So in the case of all drivers have got to take a minimum of 45-second stop, and then it's ultimately dependent on the success seconds. So if they've finished first in any of the previous 2 races in which they competed, they'll get an extra 20 seconds in the pit stop time, 15 for second, 10 for third, and then 5 seconds for 4th or 5th position, and it's added from the previous 2 races, which is why we're seeing drivers with sort of hugely varying pit stops. And the drivers that are really taking the most are Roger Bromley with 80 seconds. Likewise, Marco Cencetti again has 80 seconds, and the longest pit stop will be Woodward and Kaiser with 85, as we see Woodward now diving into the pits.
So Terence Woodward will hand over to Ross Kaiser, who was in sparkling form at Silverstone. James Swift continues on his way. So does James Abbott and John Harrison. Also in, not unsurprisingly, is Andy Cummings to pass over to Bradley Ellis. And that will give Bradley every opportunity to claim Supersport honours, as now Harrison lines up the move on James Abbott. Uphill into turn 2. And Harrison sneaks the inside of Abbott. How long will he enjoy it for? It depends how quickly he gets the power down. Come out of turn 2 very quickly. And Abbott a little bit slow on his way.
Now that I was not expecting to see there. So the 360 team have decided that they will put a splash of fuel in that car to get it to the end of the race.
Fascinating. But I guess that with the extra 40 seconds anyway, they didn't really have anything to lose in terms of more. They're going to be off the podium today, so they're going to lose some success seconds for tomorrow. Is probably doing the maths. Is there benefit in refueling or not?
Yes, yeah. But obviously they were sort of moderately unsure that they were going to make it to the end. So no, we'll keep an eye out and see if any of the other SR8 teams do the same, as we've seen again. So it looks like Harrison's been able to get a really good drive away from Abbott on this lap, and I don't know if Abbott's maybe possibly just struggling a little bit there as as you can start to see that there's another interesting dynamic of this circuit being on the side of the hillside, of course, is the light and shade as you travel around the circuit, because as the sun sets behind the hills, it sort of casts various shadows around the circuit, which makes it very, very difficult to judge some of the braking points.
So here is our race leader, James Swift, and Swift now 10 seconds clear of John Harrison. Be fascinated to see if either of them refuel in the pit stops, or whether or not they decide to roll the dice.
Well, of course, we saw that Swift had a sterling drive at Jerez and did very well to manage his fuel in not dissimilar weather conditions to this, and did an excellent thing to win the first round of the season. And he didn't need to refuel. But I would think with Correa's slightly faster pace that they might be looking to put an extra splash in that car that he's sharing with John Harrison.
Yeah, I think that will be intriguing. I wouldn't be unsurprised if Manhal Alice decided to take the risk if it was marginal. Oh, and in problem there for Andrew Ferguson. So Ferguson, don't think that's anything that's gone wrong biologically, because the car, although it's against Tobble, doesn't appear to have come into contact with it. So James Swift through the shade, but of course with the pit lane open and Ferguson's car potentially quite proximate to the edge of the track, that potentially triggers the question of safety car, which then does answer the fuel economy question.
Yeah, that's right. If we get a couple of laps behind a safety car, then without a shadow of doubt, it's going to be possible to get all the way to the end. And of course, unfortunately, that wouldn't have helped the cause of Woodward and Kaiser one bit.
Now that would hurt their race gigantically, except of course they would be ahead of the queue. Right, here comes John Harrison and fuel.
Yeah, so just as you thought, possibly, of course, what this will mean is Correa knows that he will really be able to push all the way to the race. He's not going to have to worry about conserving fuel to the line. So if he wants to make an advantage, he can use every last ounce of fuel on all of the tyres in that car to get it to the finish.
And that's really, actually, very smart team management as well, because to get the best out of Victor Correa, you just drive the wheels off the thing and see what you can do.
Yeah, as we see Chris Hoy coming in to make his stop as well. Of course, as a solo driver, he'll stay in the car and no need to put fuel in that Spider either.
Should add as well, the fluorescent yellow caps are not because the Radical community is a fan of early 90s rave culture, but more because it's a very good way of firstly ensuring pit lane safety and also secondly identifying that the people who should be working on the cars are working on the cars.
Yeah, so you're, again, depending on whether it's a solo driver in the car or two drivers, you're limited to one or two team members working on the car, and that sort of limits cost and limits complexity with the championship and keeps it affordable for a wide range of drivers.
And almost certainly enhances the fashion street credibility of your mechanics. So it's through turn 9 that we've got the car of Andrew Ferguson that's come to a halt, and at the moment we're seeing no move to introduce the safety car to the event, and we are just about 3.5 minutes away from half race distance. James Swift has led throughout, and well, at the moment there is no indication that he is going to be heading to the pits anytime soon. The same for Manhal Alice in second place.
Yeah, we see Manhal's just picked up the pace as well, so he's just set his best lap of the race in this clear air, just as we thought we'd see. It's really game on now.
I think the real intrigue is going to be whether or not either Manhal or James Swift decide to have a splash of fuel. James Abbott, meanwhile, is into the pit lane now. In the Supersport class, it is Ricardo Dunner, Yanni Herpia and Shahin Nouri who are our top three, mainly by dint of the fact that they haven't had their pit stops yet, as Swift swoops downhill through turns 5 and 6, and this is when this circuit was reconfigured from the original Earthstrike ring in the mid-1990s. I think there was a degree of scepticism, but I've always felt that this track has retained the character of the Earthstrike ring. You can still go incredibly quickly here, but now the sharper braking zones actually make for slightly better racing than we used to get on the bigger layouts.
Yeah, as we just seen a quick shot across there to Gandar taking his driver's stop as well. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. With the it sort of really has one of the unique features of the original circuit is how it weaves its way through the Styrian countryside here in the far east of Austria, and it really takes advantage of the local geography. And as you say, the only thing it was missing is because it was so high speed, it was very, very difficult to find overtaking opportunities into braking zones, which the latest iteration of the circuit undoubtedly creates.
So Swift is on lap 19. He leads Manhal Alice by 16.5 seconds, which by my admittedly rudimentary maths would suggest that Swift will emerge about 5.5 seconds clear of Alice post pit stops. But the pace that Alice is running at, high 1 minute 32s, mid 133s, really screams that he's going to try and drive to a time and preserve the fuel.
Yes, that's right. So we'll see. Swift, it said, harking back to the beginning of the year, we saw Swift had a very, very consummately professional drive at the beginning of the season, and all the way through his career in Radical with the SR8 and then previously in other models as well. He's proven to be one of the sort of most Oh, I was just seeing there.
He's coming to the pits.
He is indeed, yeah.
Pulls across nice and early.
But no, he's been one of the sort of the best gentleman drivers at conserving fuel and conserving tyres and keeping a consistent pace across the race.
He gets down to the 60 km/h pit lane speed limit. Pops the visor. Now, this is going to be one of the moments on which the race will hinge as we hit exactly half race distance. James Swift heads down to his marks, and no refueling going on there. So he is going to do exactly as he did in Jerez and look to manage the fuel through to the checkered flag. So Manhal Alos essentially assumes lead the race. Here is Victor Correa, and Correa at last lap of 1:33.2 powers past a couple of the SR3s. Meanwhile, here is a replay of Jaap Bartels and James Abbott doing battle, and Bartels around he goes at turn 5. Oof, well avoided James Abbott.
I just wondered if there's possibly the briefest bit of contact there, but he did a fantastic job to get it stopped in time and avoid something more serious. So as Marco Ciancetti there again serves his stop as well. So we've just seen in the background Yanni and Nori as well serving their pit stops. So the SR3 battle all the while is getting shaken up as well.
So Victor Correa, of those that have had their pit stops, he is to the head of the queue, which is why we're following him at the moment. So essentially, as James Swift is static in the pit lane, Victor Correa is racing that car of Swift. Now, for Correa, he is looking at a 5-second shorter pit stop than James Swift, but to no avail, because Swift emerges with a huge advantage at the head of the field from those that have pitted. So Victor Correa has probably, if he wants to win this race, got the best part of 15 to 20 seconds over James Swift to chase down between now and the flag.
So Correa's outlap was a 33.2, and the last lap for Swift was a 30, somewhere in the mid-30s.
Oh, but the problem for James Swift, he slows coming out of turn 2, and just as the race looked like it was all sewn up, Swift stops and he jumps out of the car. Now that is, well, he's not happy. That is absolutely bizarre.
Yeah, that was right. It looked like the rear left wheel just locked up for a second and looked like he'd lost traction just coming out of the hairpin there. Now, what it has, of course, meant now is that Manhal Alos leads the race.
Yeah, and Alos yet to make his pit stop. He and Ricardo Dona are the only drivers who have not peeled in. Oh, there's smoke pouring forth. But it's just the suddenness with which Swift determined that was terminal and stopped. And then out of the car. Cathartic. Oh my goodness me. And yeah, that is why now we could well be seeing a safety car.
We'll definitely be seeing a safety car situation now, won't we? As the fire crew there doing a fantastic job to get to the scene quickly and hopefully respond.
Yeah, so I think it was just a little bit of oil burning out of the exhaust rather than anything more significant, but
yeah, real
taking
shame
the
there,
belt and braces approach.
Definitely going to be a long night for the 360 team. That's a real shame.
Exactly, because they've got an awful lot of washing to do before they can even get on to the rebuilding. Well, no wonder that James Swift decided to pull it to a halt. He must have been aware of the rising temperature. Well, there's Stuart Mosley, who has taken over from Jaap Bartels as he goes past the scene of the conflagration. And maybe actually with the field reasonably dispersed at the moment, there's not quite that necessity of scrambling the safety car there might have been. This isn't a battle for position, by the way. Stuart Mosley to the inside of
As he just
Bradley Ellis.
Bradley Ellis there for the pass and lets him through. But no, because it's a fairly slow part of the circuit where Swift stopped there, I think they can go with just waving it and hopefully recover the car really quickly and we'll be back fully racing. As we see, Manhal finally takes his stop now.
So a bit of a wait for Manhal. So we're going to have a very interesting order and way for the race to unfold by the time these pit stops are worked through, because Stuart Mosley may take over in the lead of the race here, because here comes Manhal Alos just behind Ricardo Donut.
Now the question here is Donut going to be able to move across quickly enough and allow Manhalos? Obviously there's a big difference in speed differential there between the SR3 and the SR8, and it looks like he's been able to hold on to the lead. So yes, Manhal still retains the lead over Stuart Mosley. And
crucially, Alos is going to get past Donut before they get to the yellow flag zone at turn 2. So Alos leads the race from Stuart Mosley, then it's Victor Correa in 3rd, Chris Hoy's in 4th, James Abbott is in 5th, Ross Kaiser is going to be in 6th place. We've still got the yellow flags over on the extra turn 2, so Manhal Alos looking for a first victory of the season.
So we'll just wait to see as the timing screen sort of unwinds itself and we find out exactly what the difference in the gap is between Mosley and Alos here, because this is going to be very exciting. Obviously, Stuart Mosley, a really experienced radical racer at every level, raced the SR9 LMP2 car, and he's really got to grips with this RXC Spider now in its first year of racing, and yeah, this is going to be a very, very exciting finale, I think.
Yeah, Stuart Mosley has certainly got the skills to chase down Alos, and here comes Ricardo Donut. I was about to get very excited from it and say that was Stuart Mosley, but it's Donut, who's not going to be badly placed either in the Supersport class. So across the line comes Alos now. His margin over Stuart Mosley, we wait, is 6.9 seconds. Now that's chaseable for Stuart Mosley. Here he is.
Yeah, we've still got a generous 24 minutes left of the race, so more than enough time to chase down that lead. And yeah, 1:32.8 on that last lap as well for Stuart. This is game on.
Well, it used to be said that Formula 1 is if spelt backwards. Radical European Masters isn't if spelt backwards, but the principle applies with regards to that spin from Jaap Bartels that we saw on replay a few moments ago, because had he not had that rotation, well, that would have given Stuart Mosley potentially the lead. Oh, and that's somebody having a huge moment at turn 2.
Just wondering, that looks like possibly Jean Gandar there spinning. I'm just wondering if he's possibly parked himself in a situation he can't get out of there, but no, moving back to the front there, and Manhal's really going to have to push early now, and maybe a little bit of lady luck will be shining on him later in the race.
Well, we saw, didn't we, the tractor that was going out at turn 2. Jean Gandar's not come through sector 2, which would suggest that possibly Jean isn't going to be recovering from there, as Alos about to reel off the 23rd lap. And for those drivers going the whole distance single-handedly, driver fitness is going to start to become a real factor as well, because it is going to be hot work in these cockpits, significant G-forces, particularly through sort of the final half of the lap. A lot of corners at mid-speed, lots of lateral G-forces coming one after the other.
There's no wind here at all, so the temperature is incredibly sapping. Even just walking around the paddock, you really do feel the heat. So, you know, at the wheel of a 160, 170 mile an hour racing car, you're really going to be feeling it. The SR8s will pull up to 2.5 G through the corners, and there's some very, very high speed corners here. So, yeah, they'll all be feeling it after the weekend, undoubtedly.
Yeah, it's very strange. This weekend has been one of the quietest paddocks I've ever seen at an international motorsport event, basically because everybody is sitting down and drinking water and moving as little as possible until they absolutely have to.
Yeah, and hydration will have been, undoubtedly, I'm sure some of the drivers will have taken on water in the pit stop as well, because hydration is going to be absolutely paramount. And we see a stop and go infringement there, a pit stop infringement for car 88. So that's obviously Ross Kaiser, who's been on a charge all the way back up through the field and has in fact made his way up to 5th, but he'll be dropping back again with that. That's not ideal at all.
No, he may well retain 6th place actually as a result of all of that. So the order then is Manhal Alos leads, 2nd place is Stuart Mosley, 3rd is Victor Correa, 4th is Chris Hoy, 5th is Ross Kaiser, but about not to be, 6th is James Abbott, 7th and leading the Supersport class is Ricardo Donut, in 8th place we've got Bradley Ellis, 2nd in Supersport class, 9th place is Alain Costa, and 10th, 3rd in Supersport class is Shaheen Nouri, 11th is Yanni Hupia, and then in 12th is Jean Gandar, who is slowly recovering back to the pits.
Yeah, and we'll just see in a second. So Manhal did a 1:33, and in fact, Stewart's did a 1:34 on that last lap. So he hasn't been able to gain any advantage to Manhal in that last lap.
Now that's interesting. Stuart Mosley, you were talking about the shade a moment ago, isn't wearing a tinted visor, which is a little bit of a surprise for somebody of Stewart's experience, given the way that the light levels have just been constantly changing through this race.
Yeah, that's right. And as you know, because of the way that the circuit dips and rises, there's a few separate areas of the circuit where you are effectively driving straight into the sun. So that's not going to be helping his cause.
So Mosley will be, well, you gave away a lot of time through the first sector to Manhal Alos as well. That was 6/10 that Mosley conceded to Alos. But of course, what we don't know is maybe just how hard Jaap Bartels pushed the tyres early on in the race, and how much he's left Stuart Mosley to work with.
No, and yeah, I think that's really going to be the question now. We've sort of seen where everyone's running in terms of refuelling. I didn't quite catch whether or not Manhal refueled. I don't think he did he? So yeah, this is going to be a tense final 20 minutes of the race.
But with Mosley not really pressurising Alos in quite the way that we anticipated he might, it means that Alos has got that luxury of being able to run at a lap time that gives him plenty of margin in terms of the fuel conservation.
I'm just wondering if he knows that there's more in the car, and he knows that he has a lap time he can achieve, and maybe he's just waiting, biding his time for a little bit later on in the race, when he knows that Alos might be easier prey when his tyres have sort of gone past their best.
Well, that last lap from Alos, a 1:33.2, a 1:32.5 for Stuart Mosley, so he's 5.1 seconds back. Victor Crea is flying, a 1:32.0, and he's 16 seconds back from Manhal Alos, and was 1.2 seconds quicker than Alos last time through. So Crea has got the time here, just about. Alos can't afford to go much beyond 1:33.2 on a consistent basis before Victor Crea starts to become a little bit of a concern.
Yeah, you can see this leading trio really bunching up towards the end of the race. So I think it's going to become as much a question of racecraft as it is a lap times as we approach the final couple of minutes.
Now, something that could also be quite interesting with the fuel preservation of Manhal Alos's car is that Alos is consistently very, very quick through the first sector, which is that period of very heavy acceleration which uses more fuel. So whilst the lap time is suggesting he's probably okay with the fuel margins, it's the sections of the lap where he's really quick are actually the high fuel consumption sections.
Yeah, that's right, because once you get up to the that's turn 2 effectively, it's pretty much downhill all the way from there. So and now also the circuit is pretty flowing from there as well. The corners are much higher speed. You can maintain a higher speed, as you see Crea demonstrating here.
So Crea about to complete his 26th lap. It was a 1:32.8 from Alos, a 1:32.5 from Mosley, and a 1:32.4 from Crea. So we are pretty much as we were at the start of the lap.
Just see, and it's funny actually. You're saying Crea looks like he's running a clear visor as well. So this is obviously the choice of the more experienced drivers to go with a clear visor. But yeah, a little bit surprising.
Yeah, I need to talk to them after the race and find out what the logic behind that is. In 4th place, we've got Chris Hoy. He's quite some way adrift of Crea. There is Ricardo Donut, who is our Supersport leader, and he is 8.3 seconds clear of Bradley Ellis, but Ellis is 1.2 seconds a lap quicker than Ricardo, so that potentially is looking like it may change before the flag. Now, what sort of lap is Stuart Mosley going to provide on this occasion? And Mosley a second quicker than Alos through the middle sector on the lap. So here's Bradley Ellis, meanwhile. Ellis starting the lap 8.3 seconds back from Ricardo Donut in the battle for the Supersport honours. In 4th place, we've got the car of Chris Hoy.
Yeah, and he's doing a fantastic job there. Of course, he'll be back here in a week's time with European Le Mans Series as well, in the LMP3. So yeah, he's getting some really valuable experience on this circuit ahead of his return in just a few days' time.
Well, Manhal Alos last time around, a 1:33.8 versus a 1:32.5 from Mosley. The gap comes down to 3.5 seconds, and a 1:33.0 from Crea. So he splits the difference. and is 15 seconds back from Alos. So suddenly, the battle for the lead suddenly swinging back around in favour of Mosley. So Chris Hoy, in just his third season of car racing, and ambitions of the Le Mans 24 Hours next year for Hoy, but he started racing, of course, in the Radical SR1 Cup, and still enjoys getting behind the wheel of a Radical and racing whenever he can.
A perfect demonstration of the Radical racing ladder, as you said, starting in the Radical SR1 Cup in the little 1340cc 185 horsepower SR1 racer in the UK, and then migrating through the SR3 last year in the Sprint and Enduro Championships, and a little taste of the SR8 as well. And now here he is on the European stage in the European Masters with the new for 2015 RXC Spider.
And with it being the Olympic Games again next year, you're going to get another flood of drivers winning gold medals for Great Britain, then coming across the Radical racing. It works really well as a 4-year cycle. They come in, they race up the Radical ladder, next Olympics, more gold medalists come back into Radical racing.
Yeah, that's right, and they're all attracted by the same basic ingredients, which is a car that really inspires confidence. It's the secret to building a quick racing car is building something that's easy to drive fast. Building something that inspires confidence, that you can really lean on and develop your skills quickly, and really gives lots and lots of feedback, and that's what he's found. And obviously this is giving him perfect training for ultimately a career in endurance sports car racing, and hopefully Le Mans in 2016.
So, Stuart Mosley now within 3 seconds of Manhal Alos in the fight for first and second. Mosley half a second quicker than Alos last time around. Hoy in fourth has got absolutely no concerns about Ross Kaiser and James Abbott behind him. And I think what's particularly impressive about Chris Hoy is that you do come across, when you work in motorsport, people who are quite well known from other walks of life who come across to motor racing. They think it's going to be easy, they quite enjoy the glamour of it, but Chris has come in and he's applied himself so diligently to the business of going motor racing. He's always looking to learn, he's always looking to basically apply the principles that he learnt from British cycling in terms of that approach, that systematic route to improvement. He really does take his racing seriously, and it's now beginning to show in the results that are coming regularly.
Yeah, as we've talked so many times before in Radical European Masters and elsewhere, with in the UK when he was racing SL1 Cup as well, it's that sort of very, very methodical approach to taking one aspect of his performance at a time and improving that, and slowly, as you unlock all these different parts of the circuit and of the way that you handle the car, you just find that the lap time improves and gets better and better and better. So
Alos 2.6 seconds, here he is, ahead of Stuart Mosley. We're on lap 30, and there is Stuart Mosley climbing ominously behind him. And one of the difficult things about leading here at the Red Bull Ring is because some of the stretches are quite lengthy between corners, you consult your mirror and you can see your rivals behind you. So Alos leads, Stuart Mosley is second, Correa remains in third, fourth is Hoy, fifth is Kaiser, sixth James Abbott, Ricardo Donor is seventh, leads the Super Sport class from Bradley Ellis in 8th. 9th place Alan Costa, Shaheen Nouri completes the top 10, and he also completes the Super Sport class podium. But we have still got a good chunk of racing to go. Almost 25% of the race remains, and so this is far from settled, particularly as Alos has now dipped a little bit deeper. He's just set his personal best lap of the race, so 1:32.2. And you could be exactly right, Will, that Stuart Mosley was just waiting until Alos was going to start to get a little bit nervous about how much gas was left in the tank before really turning up the heat.
Yeah, although of course we've seen so many times before that it's one thing to catch up to the car in front of you, but to pass it is a different matter altogether. And these cars, because they're so highly aero dependent, you've got a lot of underbody aerodynamics. The turbulent air behind is quite severe, and it can make it quite difficult to just get that last couple of hundredths as you're really closing up to the back of the car when you're so evenly matched.
But Stuart Mosley 6/10 faster than Alos on that last lap. Mosley setting his personal best lap of the race as Alos sets his, and I think that's going to be the real concern for Alos, is that as he goes faster and faster, Mosley can go faster still.
Just see him turning through again, and yeah, keeping it very, very neat and tidy there, and you see minimal steering input, gets the car straight on the exit, and he's going to get a great drive as we possibly see on this lap. He finally dips below the 2 second mark from Alos.
In third place, Victor Correa would appear to have possibly settled for third. He's not really making any inroads into this leading duo. He's 15 seconds clear of Chris Hoy as they approach James Abbott, who's faded strangely post pit stop. So I don't know whether Abbott has possibly had something not to his liking with the car, but he is about to go a lap down. Well, he's already gone a lap down to Manhalas. He's about to go a lap down as well to Stuart Mosley, and Abbott in 6th position. Well, Mosley tucks up behind him into turn 8 as Allos runs extraordinarily wide at turn 8. Now, that could be critical, and he does it again at turn 9. So Allos, in the space of 2 corners, loses the lead now to Stuart Mosley. So Mosley takes the lead, and, well, I don't quite understand what happened there to Manhalas. He comes back at it.
Another big lock up there. I'm just wondering if his...
Round he goes. We'll let the sound effects do their job there for you. As I was just wondering if there was some fluid or something on Alos's tyres for him to run so wide through two corners like that.
Yeah, that's right. He was obviously that first one. We just see. Is this a replay here of? Oh,
Correa.
Is that an issue for Correa?
Pulling off the road and out of the race. That is just at the start of the start and finish straight. Well, this is quite something. We said that with almost 25% of the race to go, anything could happen, and indeed it has. So Chris Hoy finds himself now elevated into 3rd position. Wonder if we can have another look at what happened to Correa there, because it almost, where we came into it, it could have just been the angle of the wheel, but it looked as if he'd possibly got an issue with his front right suspension.
Yeah, that's right. You just see a slightly, we got
full
yellows
yellow
as well now. Oh, we just see a replay here of that. Big lock up there by
Allos.
Possibly a little bit over exuberant there and a little bit desperate to retake the place, and unfortunately he ran out of road.
Yeah, that is. I think he was maybe sort of showing Angela Merkel levels of patience going into turn 1 there, because that was a move born of frustration. So the safety car comes out with 8.5 minutes to go, or full course yellow anyway, and that's a very, very unusual. Yes, here's the safety car. What an unusual place for Victor Correa to pull off.
That's right, to find yourself on the inside there and just sort of tucked up against the pit entry, which is a little bit surprising.
So Stuart Mosley is our race leader. Allos is in 2nd. Chris Hoy is in 3rd. Now, here we see it again for Victor Correa. He just suddenly pulls off the road. It's when he turned just towards the barrier. It's the way the car suddenly just landed suggests that something broke internally. Well, having initially been very good news for Chris Hoy, it now becomes very bad news because it backs him straight into the realms of Ross Kaiser.
Yeah, that's right. It was just a slightly surprising there. So it looks like he's the safety car has released both Abbott and Manhala as well,
because he wants to catch the race leader Stuart Mosley.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm just wondering if Abbott's fully realised that as well. It looks like Manhala's possibly trying to retake or take what he thinks is unlapping himself there.
Well, we've got just over 7 minutes of the race remaining. Bradley Ellis, another beneficiary, because he closes right up onto the tail of Ricardo Dona in the Supersport battle, as the track shrouded in shadow once more. So this is going to take not a few moments to sort out, and we're potentially looking at a 1-lap sprint by the time this is all worked through, because here's our race leader, Stuart Mosley. He is a good half a lap away from catching the safety car, and from Stuart's perspective, there's no real rush to do this, is there? Because actually when they're all bunched up, there is every possibility that Ross Kaiser could surge through and win this, given the pace Kaiser had been showing just before the the safety car came out setting the fastest lap of the race.
Yes, and of course in qualifying as well yesterday, he showed his raw pace and was on, absolutely the fastest racer out there. So now I'm sure he's taking all the time he wants on the return lap round to come up and meet the safety car.
So we did have that race in the Radical UK Cup a couple of years ago at Alton Park, where there was a little bit of accidental confusion, we'll call it, about them queuing up behind the safety car, which benefited one or two drivers a little bit more than others. But now Stuart Mosley has caught the train. Shaheen Nouri is also due a wave through, one would suspect, but hasn't gone for it. So here is Stuart Mosley. He is our race leader from Manhalals. In third place, we've got Chris Hoy. In fourth, it's Ross Kaiser. Now, they are the only 4 cars on the lead lap of the race. And then in fifth, it's James Abbott. Sixth is Ricardo Dono, the Supersport class leader from Bradley Ellis, just behind him in seventh. Alain Costa is eighth. Shaheen Nouri is ninth. And in 10th is Yanni Hupia. And they are the cars left running after that very strange retirement for Victor Correa. And it's very unusual to see mechanical issues at all for these radicals. And it's even more unusual to see 2 such abrupt failures as the ones that we've had, or 2 such abrupt issues rather, the ones that have seen Victor Correa and then James Swift into retirement, because more often than not, Will, if something goes wrong, they can normally get it back to the pits.
Yeah, that's right. And these cars are very, very durable. Of course, the SR8 in production since 2005. So because of the nature of a closed cockpit, a closed wheel sports car, they're fairly robust. And as you saw with Costa earlier on, it's normally pretty easy to get back to the pits and rectify whatever issue you have. But no, it's I'm sure there'll be the technical teams will be straight onto that and investigating those issues.
Well, I just wonder if they're going to be making a call in the next minute or so about whether this is going to be it, because unless the safety car retreats at the end of this lap, then we are probably in the realms of finishing the race behind the safety car.
Yeah, there didn't appear to be a recovery vehicle, did there, at the scene? So, if it takes sort of the last, it took 2.5 minutes on that last run round to meet the safety car, and obviously they've all now slowed down. So, it's looking touch and go, isn't it?
Should be, if we do get a 1-lap sprint at the end of the race, it would be very, very entertaining indeed.
Yeah, you can just see Ross Kaiser in the background there of this sort of pack that's bunched up behind the safety car. I'm sure he'll be ready to pounce on the restart if that takes place.
So they feel like they're going. I think the pace of the safety car here is that there's an outside shot that they're going to get Correa's car cleared on this lap, and therefore if they can have a slower lap behind the safety car, then it does mean that we will be able to go racing for what would be almost certainly the last lap of the race. We've got 2 races tomorrow from the Radical European Masters. Do make sure you join us for them. We will be talking to you from about 9:50 Central European time tomorrow. That's 8:50 in the UK for the first race of the day, and then the final race of the weekend is at 4:30 Central European time, or in the UK 3:30 tomorrow afternoon. So make sure that you join us for these 2 races from the Radical European Masters. If they're anything like this afternoon's, will be doubtless pretty full of drama. So we are now down to just 2.5 minutes remaining, and no indication so far as to whether or not the safety car is going to be in at the end of this lap. And I was just pondering driving here this morning whether Zeltweg, which is basically the town closest to the Red Bull Ring, is the only town or city to have hosted a Formula 1 Grand Prix on 3 basically completely different circuit layouts, because we had the Zeltweg Airfield circuit in the 1960s, which had a Formula 1 race, 1964 if memory serves correctly. Then we had the original Earthstrike Ring, and then the A1, which is now the Red Bull Ring. So 2 layouts isn't uncommon, but to have 2 completely different circuits in the same city in different locations is probably quite unique.
Yeah, absolutely. The safety car lights are out now, so it looks like they are going to make a restart with just less than a minute and a half to go.
This is going to be quite the last lap, isn't it? As the safety car is about to peel in. There is the 88 car, Ross Kaiser. He has got a lot of traffic to clear before he can get to grips with Chris Hoy. For Stuart Mosley, he's got a couple of lap cars between himself and Manhal Alos. As now Stuart Mosley pulls pin. Now that is experience for you. Stuart Mosley is not going to be taking any chances here as he rockets away. But what about Alos and Hoy, who've got in trouble? Bradley Ellis pulls off the road at the back of the pack. So Bradley Ellis, who was about to be challenging for the Supersport win, something goes wrong for Ellis. So he pulls off and out of the race as Alos in second rides the curbs at turn one. James Abbott backs right out of the throttle.
I'm just wondering here if Hoy's thinking about having a go with Alos there as well.
And here comes Kaiser as well in the back of your picture. Alain Costa, who's got the pace, is a lap down. Their next target is the Finnish driver, Jani Hupia, who quite sensibly, you'd imagine, is going to stick out of the way. And running wide as well is James Abbott. So now Alos is able to pick his way past the SR3. Hoy likewise, but it's really the progress, or in fact Hoy not likewise, he goes for it now into turn 3. So Chris Hoy, will he get onto the Radical European Masters podium? It all depends on the progress of Ross Kaiser, who is scything through. I think the blocker here for Kaiser is possibly going to be Alain Costa as they arrive into turn 5. Stuart Mosley is long gone. Alos in second is reasonably secure.
Oh,
Kaiser
stop across the last. Yeah, real challenge here to find a way past Costa. Of course, there's not many places to overtake on this second half of the circuit.
So it looks like it's going to be victory here at the Red Bull Ring in the first race of the weekend for Stuart Mosley and Jaap Bartels. Mosley accelerates through the final turn. He and Jaap Bartels take the victory after a last lap sprint. What about second place? It is going to go to Manhal Alos, and completing the podium it is Sir Chris Hoy, who finishes on the rostrum, and Ricardo Dona wins the Supersport class from Shaheen Nouri, and then it's going to be Jani Hupia for third place with Bradley Ellis. That very, very strange retirement on the safety car restart.
Yeah, that's right. And Shaheen Nouri, the 7th overall, and Ricardo Dona, 6th position, and our Supersports class winner. Yeah.
So let's have a look then at the results. So Jaap Bartels and Stuart Mosley win it from Manhal Alos, and then Chris Hoy, Terence Woodward and Ross Kaiser in 4th, Alain Costa in 5th, Ricardo Dona 6th, and Supersport winner from Shaheen Nouri, James Abbott in 8th, Jani Hupia 9th. He completes Supersport podium, and then Bradley Ellis classified 10th, but wasn't running at the flag. Marco Cenchetti was running at the flag, but had a problem-filled race. Well, a most unusual race for the Radical European Masters, with a slightly disjointed and attritional conclusion, but a very entertaining race for all of that. And once more, it is the spider to the fore of the field, because even without that safety car intervention, Stuart Mosley was set fair for a win.
Yeah, that's right, and you see, absolutely delighted, and he really deserved that, because that was a very, very well judged, drive. He capitalised on the pace that he knew he had over Alos at exactly the right moment, and then did the right thing on the restart and pulled out. Really caught a march on everybody else. Yeah, that's a fantastic drive for him, and let's not take it away from Jaap as well, who's been driving with him, who did a fantastic job in the first half of the race to keep the leading pack.
Exactly. I mean, Jaap Bartels was busy dicing with Manhal Alos for most of the first half of the race. It was just that one spin for Bartels which slightly blotted his copybook, but nonetheless, Mosley and Bartels victorious. A great drive from Manhal Alos for second place. He will be very pleased with what that has done for his championship, and Chris Hoy into third. And again, for Hoy, he is just beginning to flourish as a racing driver. That was a really smooth, consistent, clean performance.
A little bit of a wobble. Look at that.
I think they rather enjoyed that, didn't they?
Yeah, absolutely, and so they should. Yeah, that was a textbook race, really, and they did everything they need to negotiate. There was a real variety of challenges there, weren't there? And they did just what they needed. That was perfect.
And in the Supersport class then, Ricardo Donat, he won it. Shahin Nouri second. And Yapia on debut on to the podium. And, well, 2 more races to come tomorrow. Manhal looking somewhat frustrated because it was those moments when he ran wide through turns 8 and 9 which arguably caused him problems. We have got a couple of cars under investigation for overtaking when they shouldn't have done it, and I think Alos will see this as possibly one that got away from him.
Yeah, maybe a slight missed opportunity there, as you said. He, you know, as we just see a replay of the restart here, and you know, Terence taking the early advantage and getting a good line through that corner as behind. You know, there was a real melee 4 wide there as they had, and that forced Manhal wide in the early stages of the race.
Yeah, it was a lively start to the race, and then when it settled down, James Abbott was having a really fine scrap with John Harrison. As out front, James Swift looked to break clear in the early stages. Another good scrap to enjoy between Jaap Bartels and Manhal Alos, with Alos eventually picking his way past Bartels. But the pair of them running very, very close. In fact, a little bit more close than they ought to have done. 1, 2, 3. And then they decided they'd had enough along the start and finish straight. But then Bartels having this moment, battling with James Abbott, losing the rear of the car. Fortunately, it didn't cost him too much time. Unfortunately, there was also no further contact. Post pit stops, Alos running very wide through turn 8, and then again at turn 9. That meant that his advantage over Stuart Mosley disappeared. Alos tried to fight back immediately into turn 1, and unfortunately, just pushing a little bit too hard on the brakes, he spun. And after a late safety car prompted a 1-lap sprint, it was Stuart Mosley and Jaap Bartels who came through to score victory in the first of 3 races this weekend in the Radical European Masters. Second place to Manhal Alos and third place to Chris Hoy, with Ricardo Donat winning the Supersport class from Shahin Nouri and Yanni Hupia. Doing podium. Yep. So the drivers taking a very well-deserved opportunity to tail down, rehydrate, as that was hot going. Still very, very warm outside.
Yes, and I can't find this in the spider, and I just made a mistake. I was driving frantically because the time was running out, so I made an error.
Smahouse talking to Stuart Mosley. I don't know if you could overheard that, but he was basically saying that he just made a mistake into turn 8, was just pushing a little bit too hard, and that was ultimately what cost him the win. So we'll be getting the drivers up on to the rostrum in just a moment. A reminder that 9:50 Central European time tomorrow for race 1, and then 16:30 Central European time tomorrow for race 2. So as the drivers are about to come onto the podium from Will Brown and myself, Ben Evans. So thank you very much for joining Will Brown and myself, Ben Evans, for the action this afternoon. We will see you bright and early tomorrow morning with all of the racing from the second of the 3 encounters for the Radical European Masters here at the Red Bull Ring this weekend.
Allargo.